So yeah, the talk of the town is that Sonic Frontiers is the most hated Sonic game currently. But the real question is why? Now before anything, we already know there's not going to be a single perfect game. Now there could be a perfect game to you personally, but in terms of every single game or any game out there, I don't think there's going to be a perfect game. Once again, it all comes down to your personal opinion. Now the problem with Sonic games is that everything from here on goes downhill, as many people state that, for example, one Sonic game could be the best Sonic game of all time or even the most perfect game, and that no other game can possibly come close to that one. But when it comes to Sonic Frontiers, for some reason as of recently, and this has happened with many games over the past couple years, where a Sonic game releases, many people love it, but then boom, automatically hate it a couple years later or even a couple months after. When Sonic Frontiers was first released, many people were actually somewhat excited for the game, as it was a whole different step of a direction in terms of the whole Sonic gameplay and Sonic format. Many fans were excited for the game as it had a much more serious tone in terms of its story compared to previous recent Sonic games. And as stated previously, there's not going to be a single game out there that's going to be perfect, and maybe for your own personal opinion or your own personal preference, it may be the best and perfect game you've ever played, but in terms of other people, it could be the worst game they've ever played. But why is Sonic Frontiers the most hated game as of recently and as of right now currently? Well, we need to go back to the basics and see what exactly this game did wrong. And as stated previously, there's going to be at least one tiny bit of a flaw that prevents this game from being a good or a perfect Sonic game in terms of what other people think of it. Now before anything, I do want to state that Sonic Frontiers is my personal favorite Sonic game of all time. Now there's many other games that I personally enjoy, but there's many things that this game brought to the table which I just did not expect, and I personally loved it for it. Now the biggest issue or the biggest flaw that many people stated about the game was that the open zone was very boring and it felt really lifeless. And as much as I love Sonic Frontiers, I do have to kind of agree with this statement, as the open world or open zone, whatever people want to call it, did feel kind of repetitive in terms of its minigames, challenges, and other type of things that you needed to collect. And while on the topic of open zone, many people actually have criticized this about the game, and even myself as well, where we can actually see the pop-ins of random different objects floating around and would just randomly spawn right in front of you, which felt kind of out of place. And this really sucks, as you would think Sega and Sonic Team would take their time to fully polish out the game, but unfortunately that was not the case here. Even with the recent release of Sonic Frontiers Definitive Edition on the Switch 2, you would think that they would actually fix the pop-ins, but unfortunately, it's still there. And speaking about the Definitive Edition of Sonic Frontiers on the Switch 2, I think this is where all the hate is starting to stem from, as many people were very underwhelmed with the whole performance and visual updates for the Switch 2. I personally think many fans were expecting some sort of like smooth 4K 60 FPS to run on the Switch 2 in terms of Sonic Frontiers, and for them to possibly fix the pop-ins, but like I said, this was not the case here, as the game actually runs pretty much the same as the Switch 1, just improved by a tiny bit. So yeah, many fans have stated that this was a very lazy cash grab for Sega, and honestly, I think many people would agree with them. This was honestly the most bare bones update or even upgrade that you can possibly get for the Switch 2 in terms of Sonic Frontiers, and the worst part is that many people were upset that this was a game keycard, where you couldn't even upgrade the Switch 1 version to the Switch 2. Something else that many fans have complained about ever since the game first released and launched was the fact that the controls actually felt very clunky and felt really weird in terms of the open zone, and even when it comes to the actual level design of each level and stage you play in. And many people have stated they didn't like the actual movement or how Sonic controlled in terms of cyberspace stages. And I remember I made a video about this a couple months back where it felt like Sonic's drift was actually very weird, and I prefer the Sonic Unleashed drift compared to Sonic Frontiers. Overall, Sonic's movement, and even I have to agree, felt really wrong and felt very just weird overall. And speaking about how clunky the gameplay is, actually many people have stated that the story of the game was not very well written, and were just not a fan of how every single character was portrayed. Especially when it came to Sonic and, you know, his whole voice thing.
Right, you said Titans earlier, plural.
Yeah, many people just did not like the voice direction they gave Sonic in this game. And as stated previously, there's always going to be a division somewhere and somewhat in the Sonic community, as 50% could possibly say they like the voice and they actually like how deep his voice is in this game, while the other 50% can possibly say that they like his old and energetic voice that Roger Craig Smith gave him in Sonic Colors, and possibly even in Sonic Lost World. Now when it comes to the actual boss fights, I do think that many people actually like them. I could be completely wrong, but many people have stated that they're probably one of the best boss fights out of the entire Sonic series. Now moving on to the very last thing that many people apparently hate is the fact that the actual final boss, and I do have to agree with them, in the base game felt very lackluster.
What is that? What the fuck is that?
Like, bro, this is... Bro, you can't make this up. This was the actual final boss fight. Come on, man.
Come on now, dawg. Come on, man.
I mean, I can't blame them, bro. This whole final boss fight for the base game, yeah, it was not it, man. But people were actually not a fan of the actual DLC, which would be the Final Horizon DLC that they released about a year after the game's launch. Now, this actually has to stem back to the actual gameplay styles of every single character. Many people actually somewhat enjoyed Sonic's, but were not a fan of how he controlled in cyberspace. But in terms of the actual open zone, many people did not like every other character's gameplay style. So yeah, many people just were not a fan of how Amy, Tails, or even Knuckles controlled in the game, and we actually did get some updates which fixed many things about these characters. So yeah, this pretty much summarizes what many fans or even people from other communities have stated about the game and what they don't like and possibly even hate about the game. And as stated previously, I do think Sonic Frontiers is one of the best Sonic games out there. I personally love this game. It's my favorite Sonic game of all time, and I even made a video a couple months back talking about why it's my favorite game and why it's very special to me. Now, do I think there's many flaws in the game? Yes. Should there be improvements made? Yes. I do think the game is not perfect, and I do know that the game needs to be improved by a lot. But yeah, you guys let me know in the comments down below. How do you guys feel about Sonic Frontiers, and how do you guys feel about this whole hatred or hate train going on about Sonic Frontiers as of recently? And I'll leave you all with this one statement, and I do think it's very true, as we have seen it countless amount of times. Social media has ruined gaming, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. For now, stay safe, take care, and peace.